Good morning. Sorry I'm late, guys. Still dealing with the COVID needing to sleep. Hopefully next week that'll be all done. So Grant Cardone's 10X conference is coming up. He's advertising it like crazy. And, Shaquille O'Neal was on CNBC sometime this past summer. And they were talking about all kinds of kids signing these great contracts, playing sports. And Shaq has a great story about what happened to him the first time that he signed a contract. He was 19 years old. He played 1 year in college, and then he went into the NBA. And the first contract that he signed with Nike was for $1 million. And so he signed the contract, was there with his managers and, high fives and all this stuff. And then he went out and he spent $1 million. He bought a house. He bought a house for his mom. Bought a car for mom, bought a car for a brother and a sister and one for a friend. And before he knew it, by the end of the day, he had spent $1 million. And his manager had to call him up and tell him, you signed a contract for $1 million, but you don't have $1 million. What you actually have is about $400,000. So you're now in the hole, and we've got to go figure out a way to deal with this. So they asked Shaq if he had any advice for these kids. What would you do? And he said, can I borrow a piece of paper? So they said, sure. They handed him a piece of paper. And he took the piece of paper and he ripped it in half. And he handed the half to the other guy. And he said, okay, when you make money, about half of it goes away before you even do anything. And you get half. So whenever you sign that number, understand that what you're going to actually get is about half of that number. Then he said, now, if you want to have money and be wealthy, here's what you do. And then he tore the piece of paper in half again. He says you take half of the money and you hand it to money managers and you let them manage it. And then when you're my age, you'll be financially independent. And he said, and if you want to be a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and then he tore the piece of paper in half again. And he said, you do it again and take this money and hand it to money managers. And he said, this piece of paper that you have left, this is what you go and buy the houses and the cars and the watches and the bling and all the stuff. So 1/8 of your money. You take 1/8 of the money that you do on the contracts, and then the rest of it you put away and save and invest. And if you do that, then you'll be a multimillionaire or a billionaire. Grant Cardone talks about living on 30% of the money that you make, something like that. But the point being that those that have financial independence pay themselves first. They figure out ways to invest money no matter what. They pay themselves first, and then they have the money grow while they sleep. And not just necessarily in the stock market. That's not necessarily the only way that they do it. But the system is the same. So remember, we don't plan to fail, we fail to plan. So whatever the financial plan is that you've been implementing, number one, do you have a plan? Number two, have you been implementing it? And number three, does it work the way that these guys are talking about? Because everybody that's ended up financially independent will tell you the same plan. From the richest man in Babylon, which was written theoretically 4,000 years ago, to Shaquille O'Neal saying, you got to pay yourself first, you got to invest the money first, and then you go bling bling. Grant doesn't buy, he has an interesting rule. He only buys fun stuff with passive income, and he only buys it if he can buy two. So he only buys the car or the watch, the Richard Mille watch or the Patek or the Rolls or whatever, unless it's passive income, not income that he actively made from his efforts, and if he can buy two of them. Those are his rules, and then he'll go buy the ridiculous thing. Not bad rules to live by, but the point being, have a plan and execute on the plan. Have an awesome Friday, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.